Hey, everybody. Welcome to Let's Get Pairing. This is episode 26. We are smoking, in contrast to what I apparently told Dennis last week, because we had picked a cigar. I forgot what cigar it was, and I thought it was this one in my mind. It wasn't, but we're smoking this one anyway, and we'll be
That's right,
back with the Mil Diaz limited edition next week. This is the My Father Fonseca Edition MX. We'll get into it. We'll talk about all the details, where it came from, what it smokes like, and of course, what it pairs with. But for now, grab yourself a cigar, grab yourself a drink. Let's get paired. And we're back. Welcome back. Episode 26. Let's get pairing. I'm your host, Trip. Here in the Casa de Monte Cristo studio, as always. Thank you to Casa de Monte Cristo. Check out your nearest one. They've got a billion locations. Actually, I think it's about 30. Great shops. This is the Fonseca Edition MX, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But for now, Dennis, how you doing this evening? You seem jazzed. You seem like you got that good energy. I like it.
I'm so jazzed. Well, I also forgot to turn my light on, so I was like secretly trying to get this light figured out. I've run out of names for my pseudo studio, my pseudo studio, pseudo studio. It's but the cave of, what do we call it? Cave of Temperance, I think, is the right way to
Cave
call
of
it.
Temperance.
Because goddamn, I thought it was ready to go, and I sat in this room for a couple of hours every day for this entire week to work out of, and damn near almost died from whatever toxins are in this room.
Maybe we call it the. I'm trying to think of a name. The dank dungeon of disinfectant.
Like, yeah, well, now I'm coughing up the mold spray that I used.
Yeah,
So that's
the dank dungeon of mold disinfectant.
I like it. I think it's fun. Could be a good name or an album name.
For now. I'm going to let you light up the cigar while I talk about it a little bit. So Fonseca, some people may or may not know. I feel like a lot of people don't know Fonseca is a Cuban heritage brand.
Yes.
You can still get Cuban Fonsecas. They're still out there. But it's never been kind of one of those brands on the Cuban side that's gotten a whole lot of recognition. On the non-Cuban side, I couldn't get much information about them, but I think it's because it's the cigar business and records don't go back that far. People's memories do. I'm sure if I interviewed certain people, I could get the information. But around 1974, the Quesada family started producing Fonseca for another family that was Miami-based and owned the trademark. So Fonseca was made by Quesada for about 20 years before somewhere around 1998, they purchased the rights for the name in the 90s. So since the 90s, Fonseca has been owned by Quesada. In 2019, the way that I read the story is that Yanni Garcia was on a some kind of trip traveling with crap, I can't remember her name. The Manolo's daughter. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, and I didn't put it in my notes because I wasn't going to go into the story. But essentially, they were on this trip. Yanni came up with the idea and negotiated the sale of the Fonseca brand to My Father. So My Father bought it in 2019. In 2020, they came out with the new version that was kind of a revamped, very My Father looking. This is, I mean, you can see the band. It's very My Father style, much more fancy and elegant than the old Fonsecas, which I thought were really good cigars. I really enjoyed Fonsecas for a long time. And they released a Nicaraguan Puro with the name Fonseca, using a Corojo wrapper. All the tobaccos were grown by the Garcia family, which is, of course, a big deal to a family that started with a tiny cigar factory and is now making cigars entirely out of their own tobacco. For this version, which just launched this year at the trade show, this is the Mexican San Andres version. They call it the Edition MX. It's weird because in some of the press releases and stuff, it says, Edición. with a C. On the band, it just says Edition MX.
Yeah.
In English. So
Scary.
this very likely keeps the same blend, though both Fonsecas from My Father are undisclosed binder and filler. They just say it's Nicaraguan from the Garcia family farms. And of course, this one they swap out that wrapper for a Mexican San Andres. We are smoking the Toro Grande, which
Oh yeah,
is 6.5 by 56. This is a big boy cigar.
big old slobber knocker.
Yeah, slobber knocker. That's the word. Clocks in at about $13, which isn't too crazy. I think that's pretty average these days as far as price goes. What are your thoughts on the cigar at this point? Now that you've got it going.
All of the things that I love, all of the flavors that I love of San Andreas. And we often talk about this, is that I know you're a big fan as well. It's that earthy richness. There's a certain richness to it that's distinctly, like, you can pull this apart from a lot of other tobaccos, especially wrapper tobaccos. But you can pull this out, and that spice is also, when we talk about the spice, it's not a. I usually don't get a black pepper spice from it. I end up getting a red pepper spice from it.
I completely agree.
And it's a very subtle difference to some people, but there's noticeable punch that's different to it that I really, really love. Now, again, I mentioned slobber knocker. This is basically the limit of what I would be willing to pick up and smoke. This is a big boy.
Yeah, when I was buying these, it was between this size, the Robusta, which I think is 5.5 by 50, or the Gordo. I picked this over the Gordo.
Yeah, that's fair.
As I will pretty much every time.
I would have done the same.
I do think it's smoking well. Like you said, it starts off with that kind of signature My Father super spicy pepper blast. But in this case, you're right, it's red pepper more so than black pepper. It has that like dusty, earthy, chocolatey San Andres thing going on, which I'm really liking. I'm curious if it's going to work with my pairings because it may or may not.
And that dust is almost tannic in the sense that the way it sits on your palate, it kind of dries out your palate. I don't want to say that it's drying, but it sort of has a similar quality to it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Speaking of tannic, I went to when we bought this house, our realtor gave us gift cards for this winery, Cooper's Hawk Winery and restaurant. And so we went there for dinner last night, and we had a flight. We actually ordered 2 flights to kind of share on the table. Between 8 wines, like one of them I thought was any good at all, which was kind of sad. But
not every wine can be Pete's super secret once-a-year release wine.
I mean, that's true. I did end up, I mean, it was a gift card, so, it wasn't my money. But I ordered a bottle of the most expensive wine on the menu, which weirdly at a winery, the most expensive bottle they had was $70, which doesn't seem like a lot, but I don't drink a lot of wine at restaurants. I'm just used to seeing like, $125, $150, $200 bottles of wine on the wine list.
I don't know. This is one of those moments where we should have kept Tony Velato on the line.
Yeah.
Phone a friend, question. Get a wine question. Let's call him up.
Mm-hmm.
What's with these wine prices? Because from what I hear, once you hit about $1.50, it's kind of diminishing return. Similar to what we talk about bourbons. Bourbons over $50 are like, it's you're at that point you're buying because you're collecting or you're looking for something specific.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Good evening, Sam Finnell. Thanks for watching. He says he's drinking a gin and Fever Tree and smoking an ITC Emerald.
Love Fever
that gets
Tree,
the thumbs up, man. Fever Tree is the stuff when it comes to gin and tonic. I got to know what gin you're drinking, though, so let us know in the comments, and we'll get back to that in a couple minutes. For now, I guess it's time to start pairing on our side, huh?
Damn Skippy.
All right, I'm going to start with one that people who have been watching for more than a couple weeks will recognize, at least. Maybe not familiar, but you've had this on the show before. This is Mango Cart from Golden Road Brewing.
Yeah, man.
I'm not going to go too deep into it because you know more about them than I do. But it was founded by Meg Gill and Tony Yano in 2011 in Los Angeles. It was kind of immediately upon opening the biggest brewery in Los Angeles. Like, I saw a lot of chatter about how they think they were kind of engineered to sell, which they vehemently disagree with.
Yeah.
And just kind of say, we were just investing what we had and doing the best we could, and it got on somebody's radar, I guess. They were, of course, purchased by AB InBev in 2015. Meg Gill still leads Golden Road, while Yano walked away and is now kind of involved in a group of restaurant investors in LA. They're still the largest brewery in LA. I thought it was interesting that, just kind of reading a little bit of background on Meg Gill, I read an article that I thought was really interesting, where the author has an autistic daughter and talked to Meg and found out she has an autistic daughter too. I happen to also have an autistic daughter. And I just thought that was kind of interesting. And how they kind of bonded over that, which I thought was cool. What I'm drinking tonight, of course, you know it pretty well, Dennis, is Mango Cart. This is their mango wheat ale. I didn't realize it's only 4% ABV, which is like
very
on the
reasonable.
nothing scale, right?
Yeah.
Like crushable.
Old school reasonable.
Yeah. Like you could drink 10 of these, maybe. I might have to experiment with that and get back to you.
You got enough of them for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I was telling Dennis in the green room, I mean, I wasn't on the hunt for this beer, but it just caught my eye in the grocery store, and they were buy one, get one free 12 packs, which is crazy. Distributor must be blowing them out or something, but, that was reason enough to buy a couple. So I'm going to take a couple sips of this and find out what your first pairing tonight is.
Yeah, let me pull up there's my side. I got a side view camera so I can properly see what's going on now. Well, I'll give you a guess. You want to take a quick guess if I just show you? What do you think that could possibly be?
I mean, there are many things that could possibly be.
Yeah.
But I know you pretty well. I would say that could be maybe mezcal, tequila, gin, but I think it's probably Soviet liqueur.
You were so close. So close. No, it's a mezcal, man. Check that out.
I should have known. That was my first guess, and I thought it was probably one of those Soviet liquors.
It's you know what? It's close. Usually I have
Rob Goodhart has the right idea. He said some sort of Eastern European liquor. That was his answer too.
It can be, right? Usually. So check this out, man. It's a really cool bottle. Malbien. It is legit. If you can see that official sticker, legit mezcal from Mexico. And this one is really this whole brand is really cool and exciting, because if you look at the bottle, it's hard to tell on the camera, but that's just masking. That's literally, it's not even just a pretty thing.
I was wondering if it was cut that way.
It's
look like
real,
masking tape or what.
Is literally
but it's just actual masking tape that they're printing
legit
on?
It's just legit masking tape.
That's awesome.
That they printed. So they had, I guess they took a roll, stretched it out, printed a bunch of stuff, and then just stuck it on the bottle. But so this is a really cool homage to the way that families would share mezcals with each other, even tequilas really, but would share mezcals with each other at family parties, at like group gatherings for the neighborhood. If someone's grandma made a mezcal, they'd sort of put it into a random bottle, put some tape on it, scribble, this is whatever I'm making from the Mescalero. And these guys, man, are particularly cool, because they launched in 2015 with the idea that they would start taking these really authentic, very local, almost just family name mezcals that really are not official distilleries. Some of them are just families that were making stuff at home that these guys found and said, hey, do you want to, if we help you with getting the gear, do you want to start making some mezcal?
You want to go legit?
Yeah, like, do you want to go legit, and then we can take your stuff and we can, they opened up distribution to share that with people in the US and people outside of Mexico that don't really have a chance to, unless you go there and you visit and you go to Oaxaca. You can sit there and travel the mezcal trail. Unless you can do that, it's a great way to experience mezcal kind of from the seat of comfort of your home.
That sounds like my kind of hike, mezcal trail.
there's a whole train that goes all throughout Oaxaca and in other regions in Mexico that cover mezcal, tequila, all the states, which I always forget. I can never remember the however many states. I think it was 5 or 6
I
states
believe it's 6, but my memory is as
officially.
bad as yours. Unless I have it in my notes, I'll probably forget.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff out there. And so and again, so I mentioned traditional stuff. Another reason why it's traditional, is because they still use the old school stone mills, the tajonas. It's this giant thing that's pulled by a horse, and it crushes all the piñas. It's really fantastic. Like
It's like I think I've seen a pictures of that. That's like it's a big stone wheel that they pull around in a
yeah,
circle. Yeah, those are cool.
exactly, man. And I should have mentioned that for those of you that don't know, there is a distinction between mezcal and tequila. Tequila is made exclusively from blue agave. Mezcal can be made from a bunch of different agaves. In this case, this is maguey, and maguey is the most widely used type of agave for mezcal, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I should have mentioned also, they did scribble with a little bit of marker, 45.5%, and this particular family comes from Lucio Morales Lopez. And Lucio passed away back in 2021, I believe, but his son Oscar is continuing the kind of the tradition, which is really cool.
That's very cool. I think. Packaging up mezcal from a family distillery and putting it on the big screen, so to speak.
Well, I think it works really well. We're so used to, it's almost kind of cheap when you say, oh, like Uncle Bob came to Christmas and brought his like hooch, whatever it is that he makes from Everclear and crappy juice from the store.
Yeah.
But for these people, and much like in the cigar industry, this is a pride, this is a tradition, this is a part of their family that they share with others willingly and happily.
Yeah, that's awesome. I gotta hunt some of that down.
That's some cool stuff, man.
That sounds
And
like a
very
very
affordable.
cool mezcal brand to get into.
38 bucks a bottle. If you see it in the shops, definitely worth it for a mezcal.
Not terrible.
No, not at all.
All right, I'm gonna let you sample that. I'll talk about Mango Cart a little bit. Um, Man, this beer just has such a good balance. It's like light and refreshing Hefeweizen with the sweetness of some, I don't know, mango juice, mango, whatever they're using in there. Um, but it just kind of has a nice balance, very easy drinking. The sweetness I think makes it pair pretty well with a cigar, which I think you had talked about previously. Um, yeah,
Surprisingly,
I think it just works surprisingly well. It's got kind of a dual use as it works as like a palate cleanser at the same time that it's actually working well as a pairing, which I think is kind of different.
it is very nice, man. I think I was surprised by how well that beer worked with a lot of different cigars.
Hmm. This is my first time having it with cigar. It really just kind of, I don't know, it brings out like kind of some bready notes, I guess, in the cigar a little bit. Um, maybe really just more earthiness. But it's working really well with the cigar, I think.
Similarly, I should say, oh, I did forget to mention also, this is Espadín. There it is. Espadín, meaning it goes straight from the still into the bottle.
Oh, is
There
that what
was
that means? I never knew that.
there is no
No
well, sorry,
aging.
no, that's not what it means. It's Joven is what it means, young. Joven goes directly from Espadín is the
Ah, okay.
my bad.
All good.
I done mixed it up because I got lost thinking about all the different states.
I get it. I get it, man.
Um,
How's it pairing with the cigar?
it's
Very
wild.
curious.
It's this is what I love about mezcal. That sometimes you can drink it and you get pure smoke. Other times when you have a cigar with it, you would think, oh, the smoke is going to fight the smoke. We talk about scotch is a great example. Heavily peated scotches will, depending on the cigar, they can overpower the cigar. And
Definitely.
in this case, man, I really think it's working incredibly well. A lot of citrus.
Yeah, I was gonna
It's
ask, is it kind of more on the fruity side or more on the earthy side or more on the smoky side? Because that's kind of like the different camps that mezcals tend to fit in for me.
I'll tell you what, it smells like beef jerky. It tastes like dried orange peel,
Okay.
and it finishes kind of salty. Like it has the minerality to it that we talk about sometimes that coats the palate. And I think it's actually pulling out the minerality from the cigar.
Interesting. At first I didn't know if you were messing with me, but that does sound like real nice mezcal.
No, I try not to get too crazy with my descriptions, but again, it's hard when you say, "Oh, I get salt from this thing."
Mm-hmm.
People think you're crazy because there's no salt in it.
Agreed. Yeah.
But it's
It
evocative.
feels crazy to talk about.
It's evocative of salt. I'm not saying literally there's salt in this.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Oh, I know, but some people out there.
All right. I'm going to move on to my next pairing. This one is something special. This is Creek from Cascade Brewing. This is a 2016 vintage. It's wet because I stuck it in the freezer for an hour because I just thought about pairing it kind of at the last minute. But the reason I wanted to pair it is because earlier this week, Cascade Brewing closed their doors, which I'll get to after I talk about a little bit of history. So they were founded by Art. Man, did I not put his name? I'm blanking on his name now. I've been reading his name for hours.
Art the Clown?
But what?
Is it Art the Clown?
Yes, Art the Clown. That's the one. Man, I lost his name. Art something. Art.
Artisanal.
Art. Lawrence. That's his name. Sorry, everybody. Art Lawrence. Art had previously founded Portland Brewing Company in 1986. They became known for McTarnahan's ale eventually, which is kind of gone these days. But in 1986, he founded that brewing company. There were 3 other breweries in Portland that had been founded in the preceding couple of years. And all 4 of them got together and worked to lobby for laws to allow brew pubs to serve the beer they make there. It worked. They passed those laws in, I think, 1987, which really kind of set the stage for where Portland ended up these days as, especially 10 years ago, as like the beer capital of the U.S. There's still tons of breweries there. COVID hurt a little bit, and I think just the general downturn of the beer market a little bit has contributed to a lot of breweries closing over the last few years. Anyway, in 1988, Art Lawrence founded the Oregon Brewers Festival, which has gone on to become one of the biggest beer festivals in the country, especially in the Northwest. In 1996, he says he was fired from Portland Brewing Company because he was the voice of dissent. Whenever they wanted to change things and grow, he wanted to focus on doing weird stuff. So in 1996, he founded a place called the Raccoon Lodge in Beaverton, Oregon, which is just west of the city, and incorporated Cascade Brewing for the first time at the same time, but didn't really do anything with it. So he was making beers at this little pub. He hired a guy named Ron Gansberg, who became the head brewer at Cascade and a partner. Around 1998-ish, they started barrel aging sour beers and using the name Cascade Brewing for these. Kind of over the next 10 years is when they really went from experimenting with this to turning it into, this is what we're going to do. Around 2006, they opened a brewery called Cascade Brewing. And that's when it really kicked things off. By 2008, they had their flagship beers, including Creek, which is this one, and Apricot. They kind of became known for hating Brettanomyces and using only ever lactobacillus for their sour fermentations. In 2010, they opened a dedicated sour brewery in Portland, in Southeast Portland, which is on the other side of the river from where their other facilities had been. And And so this was the first place in the country where they brewed, barrel aged, and served pretty much exclusively sour beers. Anything they made that was not sour was being made at one of their other locations. 2019 is kind of when turmoil started. Art apparently fired Ron, but no reason has ever been given. In 2020, Cascade Brewing was sold to a group of investors who also had stakes in other local breweries. But that, well, and that, I'll get to that. Nobody knows exactly what's going on with that deal or what happened. In 2020, or sorry, in May of this year, Art passed away suddenly, just about a month ago. And suddenly the details of that purchase got a lot more clear and also confusing. So apparently they had a phased purchase plan, where essentially they would inject cash into the business and Art would give them pieces of ownership. Unfortunately, he died while he was still a majority shareholder. That ownership went into a trust with his family that his daughter is managing. Apparently, she had no idea he still had anything to do with the brewery. She thought he had just given it up, and sold it completely. So she was kind of shocked by that. The liquor license was still in his name, which expired 10 days after he passed.
Suspicious?
I mean, well, it's unclear whether it was set to expire 10 days after he passed or whether there's some kind of law in Portland that,
there might be actually. Yeah.
once the owner of or the licensee of the license
That's a very fair point.
the license expires. So we're not really sure what's going on with it at this point. We know that it's closed because his daughter says there wasn't enough money to keep the business running in his trust. But the future is unclear at this point. Somebody may come in and help them out. They may kind of take some time to recover and figure out what they're doing with it. But for now, Cascade is gone, which is really unfortunate. It's kind of known as the original sour brewery in the U.S. They were really way ahead of the curve on that one, making sour since way before it was cool.
Man, it's true.
And people who love sours know that name and know that they are one of the best to do it.
They were beloved. They still are by everyone
exactly.
that's ever had the experience of trying some of their beers.
And when I thought about that, I just had to break out a bottle that I've had sitting in the cellar. This is a 2016 Creek.
So dirty bastard.
The Creek is this has been in a bottle for what is that? Is that 6 years? About 6 years it's been in the bottle. So the way that this one works is it is a blend of red ales. They make a bunch of different red ales, blend them together to Ron's taste, I guess, because he was still there when they made this. Then they age that for around or up to 17 months in oak wine barrels. And for this batch, they used they don't say exactly how much more than, but more than 16,000 pounds of Bing and sour pie cherries. That is a ton of cherries, my man. That's a lot of cherries.
Shit, how many? Is that 4 tons actually?
I think
4,000 pounds? Is it?
Yeah, 4,000 pounds is about a ton.
About a ton, right? Okay.
Yeah, so that's about 4 tons.
God damn.
Yeah, it's a lot of cherries. And it's a very sour red ale that has a lot of that cherry influence. But I think it's kind of cool that with this one they really accent the sourness of the lactobacillus fermentation with more sour from the fruit, since these are sour cherries. Man, I'm excited to take a couple sips. I should also mention this is 7.4% ABV. So not super strong. It was much stronger when it went to the barrel. But since these aren't like whiskey barrels that are getting extra alcohol out of there, they kind of settle down a little bit with the fermentation still going on in there. And I would show you the color, but it's just kind of lightish brown.
I mean, that's typical for a
Yeah.
lot of beers. It's not to say it's bad.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to take a couple sips of this and see how it pairs. Oh, Sam Fiddle says 2,000 pounds to a ton. So that's 8 tons
Oh
of
wow!
cherries.
Thank you for
A
the
lot of
correction. Yeah,
cherries.
that's a lot. That's a shitload of. That's a lot of cherries, man.
Yeah, man. All right, I'm going to take a couple sips. Tell us what your second pairing tonight is.
I'm really digging this. I'm digging it so much, and I'm so happy I made this decision. And I'll tell you later, kind of the
Whoa.
why I made this decision, because it's not why you think.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, I had to wet the palate first. Let me take you on another journey. We're wet the whistle. Yeah, wet the whistle.
Wet the whistle.
Let me take you on another journey. Talk about mezcal. We started about mezcal. We started about Joven. And I thought, there's another mezcal I've been drinking lately that's I'm super jazzed about. Really, really love it. And the story is fascinating. So let me show you what it is first. Found it, and you can't see because I drank a whole bunch of it, obviously. But La Escondida. La Escondida
The
Mezcal
mermaid?
Reposado. There's a mermaid there. Let's see if I can get it to focus.
Does La Escondida mean the mermaid? Is that right?
No, it means the hidden lady, but there's a
Oh,
story
okay.
behind this, and I'll explain that to you in a second. 40% Reposado, which I'll get into a little bit later. But founded by God damn, I can't even say this word. Julieta Campos. Julieta Campos made this, founded this in 2013. My brain's farting so hard. So I'm so jazzed about the story. So, mezcal. Did you know there was a time in history when mezcal was illegal?
I did not.
Reign of the Spanish crown. In the early 18th century, for almost 100 years, I feel like, or maybe just exactly 100 years. Mezcal production was illegal in Mexico. You could not do it. So what happened, of course, as anywhere else you ban alcohol, people said, well, fuck it, we're going to keep making it. And they couldn't distribute legally, officially, right? So there were certain groups of women that took it upon themselves to start distributing all of this illegally produced mezcal at the cost of basically being murdered by the Spanish crown for,
Oh,
for
wow.
breaking the law. Because that was, sorry, the Spanish crown, I should say, for those that are confused by the crownage. So these women would go out, they would share this, sell this mezcal and spread the love that is mezcal now as we know today. They really kept it alive during that time when realistically, I think without them, some would argue that mezcal may have really either disappeared or had maybe come back in a very different way that wasn't true to the kind of the traditions, today, to this day, that we see, like the horse-drawn, right? The horse-drawn process, all the actually the pits that they use to roast the pinions. They're just pits, man. It's amazing, and everyone does it a little bit differently. So all those traditions we may have lost potentially. And so this brand started La Escondida, and La Escondida means the hidden lady. And this is these women that were in the dark, so to speak, traveling around selling mezcal to keep this tradition alive. Now, the mermaid thing, we're going to take you back to an old Mexican legend of La Escondida, which is a little bit, it's related, but not directly. So about 1543, there was a legend about a pirate, Andrew Drake, and he fell in love with the bay, and he came over there, and basically he and his crew kidnapped a young mixed princess. You see where I'm going with this now, yes?
Yeah.
So she escaped, and this lady's name, they say, was it Josefa? Josefa? Oh, I don't know. But Josefa was her name. And she escaped. And after that point, after her escape, because she was so well known, she had this great beauty, as they all do in all these stories. Fishermen would report seeing her in the Pacific Ocean as a mermaid. And they took it upon themselves to say, wow, this is our protector spiritually, this protective mother, this woman that's there. And they ended up naming a really famous surfing beach in Mexico. It's Puerto Escondido, the hidden harbor.
Oh, interesting.
Which is down in that area. This is made in, I should have mentioned, in Oaxaca. And this story, I love that they connected this story of this mermaid princess, and the fact that women were smuggling secretly and almost really never got any credit for it. This is the first that I've heard of, I think, for for women in their role in mezcal, specifically in mezcal. Like Julieta Campos that came out and made this and started to spread the love and the knowledge that there's a lot of cool history here. And again, the check that out, man. Wait, there we go.
Oh, you got it. Oh, I love it.
Little
Little
sugar
skull
skull
on
action.
there.
It's just it's really nice, man. It's really classy. And I love a good story. I love good branding and marketing, but history of things. I like old things with a lot of old history. I think it's part of the reason why we love cigars. We love scotch, beer. Cascade is a great example. Cascade took techniques and recipes and ideas and inspiration from things that were done for hundreds of years without people even realizing what they were doing, because it did a funky thing. They put some stuff in a barrel or in a clay pot, and it turned into something they can enjoy and refine that over the years. I love that.
Right? It's so cool. Tell us about Reposado.
Oh
Before
yeah,
we
so
move on.
Reposado, quick thing, very very simple. Reposado is aged in a barrel, oak barrel. There is no distinction if it sorry, there is no specific rule against it being second use. It can be first fill, it can be second fill, third fill, whatever. But it is an oak barrel, minimum of 2 months, between 2 months a minimum or a year maximum, to be considered a reposado. And you'll see this sometimes with tequila as well. I say reposado tequila. I think the term is very familiar for a lot of people that drink tequila.
Yeah. Man, this Cascade beer is so good, dude.
It's I bet it's amazing.
Oh my god.
It's
Um,
fantastic.
it reminds me a little bit of. I'm trying to like compare it because I don't think. To me, this doesn't strike me as the kind of sour beer that if you hate sour beer, you'll automatically hate it. Um, I think to me, it's got like a sourness that reminds me of maybe like a sour apple, sour cherry, obviously. Um, Something like that. That's like a fruit that's got a lot of sweetness, but also has that sour bite to it. Um,
Yeah, tart
because
stone, man.
yeah, it's like this tartness more than this super sourness. And it's just really well balanced with the kind of complexity of those cherry flavors and the maltiness of those red ales. And man, it just is fantastic. And it's for the cigar, it surprisingly for being such a sweet beer brings out a lot of sweetness in the cigar. Um, I get more sweetness, I get more minerality. I'm not getting as much spice as I got before, but that may be the cigar kind of calming down a little bit more than um, the pairing covering up that spice.
Yeah, the spices similarly died for me, but I'm getting a very savory, intense earth flavor, and
Hmm.
no doubt from the mezcal, specifically the reposado, a little bit of that oak profile that's popping out.
Man, I wish I could share this beer with you right now. It's just so good.
Just rub it in, man. I haven't seen a bottle of that in 6 or 7 years, I think, easy.
You know what's wild about living in Oregon? I bought this at Costco.
That's crazy to me. I don't even living
And
in
it
New
was
York, it
like
was still hard to find.
I don't know, $10, $12 a bottle. It was like a good deal. Like normally there's an $18-20 bottle. Um and so I had bought like 6 bottles. I think I still have a couple left. Come visit and you'll get one.
Don't threaten me with a good time now.
um all right, I'm gonna move on to my last pairing. Actually, how's the mezcal working with it? I gotta
Fantastic.
ask you first.
Fantastic, dude. Can wholeheartedly recommend.
I'm also starting to sense a theme in your pairings, that you might have taken the MX in this cigar to heart.
No, that's I was gonna talk about this. We'll
It was
talk about this
accidental?
in the third pairing. No, no, no.
All right. Well, I'm going to move on to my last pairing, and then you can tell us
Serenade you with my story.
what your last one is. This is Lagavulin 16.
Yeah, man.
I mean, just a classic. So I won't go too far into it, especially because they don't have like a super interesting history. So Lagavulin, the beginning I think is pretty interesting. In 1742, not 742. Um, that's when the records go back to the first illegal distillation at the site. They call it the site, the area where Lagavulin now is, because back then it was just, a hill near the water. Around 1742, there were approximately 10 illegal distilleries on there. The first 2 legal distilleries in the area were constructed in 1816 by John Johnston and Archibald Campbell. Essentially, from what I've read, there are some people say that John Johnston took over Archibald's distillery. Some people say the opposite. So and Wikipedia says nobody knows which is which. One of them took over the other one, and they were partners. They basically merged and became what would eventually become known as Lagavulin, which means the hollow mill, just for translation's sake. Since then, again, this is 1837. Since then, there were so many ownership changes that I started to list a couple of them, and then I was like, that's too many. I can't just sit here for 20 minutes talking about who bought Lagavulin in what year, because it was a lot. There were a lot of ownership changes, sometimes through families, sometimes through purchases, sometimes through conglomerations, merging with other businesses in the area. But 1925, they joined the Distillers Company and became a partner in that. Eventually, that would lead to Diageo through Distillers Company was bought by Guinness, I think it was, in 1985, 1980 something. And then in 1997 was the big merger when Guinness and whatever the other company, the European Liquor Company or whatever it was called, became Diageo. So they're still owned by Diageo today. Everybody knows about Ron Swanson, so I won't go too deep into that, especially since his face isn't on this particular bottle.
Juan Ronson, man.
Juan Ronson. Yeah, that's all I got. I didn't want to get too deep into the history that we've gone over 30 times, because I had a lot to say about Cascade. So I'm going to take a couple sips of Lagavulin 16. I should mention this is their classic expression. The 16 and the Distillers Edition are kind of their core line. They frequently have much older bottlings available, but sometimes they switch those out sometimes between 18, 23, and 25. Just every few years they'll kind of switch it around depending on, I guess, what's tasting good to them at the moment. But this is their kind of core offering that's been around for about 50 years. So I'm going to take a couple sips and see what I think of pairing this with the Fonseca MX. Oh, I should also mention 86 proof. So just that little bit of extra, that 43 that Scott likes to do.
A little bit of a bite really does make a difference a lot of times, especially when you go into the second, third, or the final third of a cigar. Sometimes that makes the difference between a cigar that you have to put down and a cigar that you keep smoking. Yep. The way that it cuts through the palate and breaks apart some of the stuff that we talk about, the palate being coated on the back and on kind of the sides. That I think helps to break down some of those flavors that stick to your palate and refreshes a little bit. Not a true refresh, not like we would do with seltzer, but I think there's some merit to it.
Mm-hmm. What's your final pairing? And why is it not Mexican themed? Apparently?
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And it is Mexican, but there's a story now.
Oh, okay. So there was a theme.
Well, no. So the Mexican thing is not the theme. It was my going into the cigar, knowing, a little bit about the cigar, expecting a certain profile. We talked about the minerality and that salt. That's the trick that I was kind of trying to nail in.
Okay.
What sort of what things could I pull from this cigar, that I really love, that I tend to find very often with San Andres and things like mezcal and even things like certain scotches. It really pulls out that great minerality and that salty quality to it. So things like Lefroy 10. For me, Lefroy 10 and something really heavy San Andres, I love it.
I think that makes sense.
That sort of blend of the minerality, the earthiness is really cool. Now, speaking of earthiness, this is where my kind of pairings all connect. This is non-alcoholic. I I got to show you this.
Ah,
If you haven't heard of this, if you haven't seen it, launched in 2020. It's called De La Calle, of the street, Tepache. This one in
Hepache.
particular, this Tepache is watermelon jalapeno.
Huh.
All right. And so Tepache is really, really cool because it dates back to pre-Hispanic times in Mexico. Traditionally, they used corn, but over the years, they've kind of transitioned to using corn, different kinds of fruits. This one in particular is pineapple based. So basically, what they do is they take pineapple rind, they take piloncillo. Piloncillo is this it's like dark unrefined sugar, unrefined cane sugar, I should say. They take piloncillo, spices, cinnamon, clove, whatever spices you have, and then water. And they put that all together, and the yeast that's on the rind of the pineapple starts to ferment just a little bit. So it's not meant to be like fully alcoholic, but you'll get 2 to 3% out of it
There's a little
sometimes.
bit of fermentation juice going on
Yeah,
in there.
man, fermentation juices will happen. And it's really cool because you talk about probiotic stuff like kombucha as an example, which is one example of many things that are very cool and probiotic and fizzy. Um, Similar to kombucha, it has this really cool profile to it, and a really great vehicle for making a refreshing drink that is uniquely different, but also has those earthy qualities, those qualities of something. If you ever had certain fermented drinks, they have that kind of raw nature to them,
Yeah.
that raw quality that's really cool and I love. And I'd never had this one before. And man, you saw the first sip in the
You
green room. I
lit
was
up,
so,
dude. Like
so
a
jazzed.
Christmas tree.
The
You look
watermelon.
more excited than I've ever seen you
Oh
when you took
man,
a sip of it.
it's amazing. I should actually read the back and see what the hell is actually in this, huh? It'd be helpful if I read that. Carbonated water, watermelon juice, jalapeno juice, agave, lime juice, lemongrass. All right, fine. Cinnamon, yep, see, black pepper extract.
Oh.
Pretty cool, man. Some cool shit in this. But anyway, really cool kind of soft drink that is very deeply classic, and especially if you don't drink and you wanna experience the like a I don't want to say margarita, but you know, if you want to experience something that's different and kind of suits Mexican culture and food really well, Tepache is fucking fantastic. Like you go to anybody's house, most people will make this at home. They have a grandma that makes tepache and it's in a big vat, and just they pull some off and they add some more water and some more rind to it. They pull some more off, and it's just this constant fermentation that's happening.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to track some of that down because it sounds like
Um,
something my son would really like.
it's so
He's really
exciting.
into like funky drinks. He's been like anytime we go out to restaurants, like restaurants have really kicked it up a notch with the mocktail game. Like
Oh yeah,
almost
yeah.
every restaurant now has a bunch of non-alcoholic cocktails, and my son loves getting a non-alcoholic cocktail and feeling like an adult, you know?
Well, I love also because listen, let's be real. As adults, as older, slightly older adults now, we've been drinking for a long time. And, we talk about this on the show, right? We want you to drink better, but we want you to drink less. And sometimes that means don't drink at all because there's so many great
Yeah.
options there. Now we're in a place where it's cool to go into a bar, a cocktail bar, and order a non-alcoholic cocktail because it's just as exciting and unique and interesting as a alcohol cocktail.
Yeah, I just find it really interesting that bartenders put so much thought into them. Like they're really
Absolutely.
well thought out, I guess is the word. And well executed, of course.
Yeah, it's not vilified, right? The way that it used to be, where if you walked in and you asked for a mocktail, you would get mocked for asking for a mocktail because they'd say, "Well, we got some syrup and got some green shit syrup here. We got a little seltzer water, put it together, throw a lime in it, and give them a maraschino cherry and go fuck yourself." Right? That
Yeah,
was the
exactly.
cool idea. Now it's great, man. I'm very excited by this. Options are great because it gets people through the door. That's at the end of the day, you can share something cool with people, and that's the point.
Agreed. Agreed. Man, they had the winery we went to yesterday. My son wasn't there with us, but they had a it was almost like I didn't order one, but I saw it on the menu and it's like a mojito recipe with jalapeno. That sounded right up his alley. Anyway, Lagavulin, man. Lagavulin is officially hard candy in a bottle. Like, it is just delicious candy with, I would say a little bit, but not a little bit. A lot of smokiness. Not for everybody, but if you like it, it is like just so perfectly balanced and so good. And working really well with this cigar. Like, it reminds me of the flavors I get from Lagavulin are caramel hard candy, like those, the grandma candies in the gold foil, whatever those are
Oh
called.
yeah.
Um,
Werther's Original.
yeah, that's the one. Werther's Original, uh, sour apple, and smoke, like campfire smoke. The best. It's one of my favorites, and like, people argue a lot about Lagavulin versus Lafroig versus Ardbeg, and I just love all three of them so much.
They're all fantastic, man. And if you love Lafroig, they do actually specifically make Lafroig 10 caramels.
Really?
Excellent.
I need to track some of this
They're
stuff.
really hard to find. You can probably get them online, especially around Christmas time.
That would make sense.
But they're great, man.
Man, the richness of Lagavulin is just going so well with like that rich, earthy, spicy, slightly sweet, chocolatey character that the cigar has.
And the dustiness went away too, I think, for me at least. What about for you?
Yeah, it's more of a rich, dark chocolate now. Like my uncle was in Italy for like, or not just Italy, like all over Europe for like 2 months. Went on this crazy big vacation. But he brought me some Italian chocolate. I think it was called cold processed chocolate.
Made from real Italians?
Made from real Italian stuff.
Ah,
Like,
it's the best kind. It's the best kind.
so much of this in there.
Just that little. That's what you need.
But I think he called it cold processed. It's apparently chocolate it goes from cocoa bean or cacao bean, whatever they're called, to a bar of chocolate without ever being heated. And because of this process that they use, it doesn't melt. And it has like this texture that's not quite dusty, but it's like
chalky?
What?
Is it chalky
Not quite
like
chalky.
dark high cacao content chocolate bar?
No, it's different. I'm trying to remember exactly what it reminds me of. It reminds me of like a Rice Krispie, where it's got like that flakiness to it. It's got all these tiny bubbles in it.
Aerated? Oh, it's aerated chocolate.
Yeah, all these tiny bubbles, and it's got like it looks like a chocolate bar, but when you bite it, it has this crunch, and it is just so good. And it's like really dark, rich chocolate that doesn't have that melty kind of vibe that you get from like those, like you were saying, like 97% cacao chocolate.
Yeah.
But it still has all that chocolate flavor. And that's what this is reminding me of.
Tell you what, man, I love
chocolate without it's got the rich dark chocolate, but not the powderiness of like like that chocolate powder that I used to eat when I was a kid because I thought, hey, it says Hershey's on it. I didn't know it was 100% cocoa that had no sugar. But it's in between that and like the 99% bar or whatever. It's good. It's a very
I'm
rich
a fan
cigar.
of the Milka's. Milka makes an Aero bar, which is really cool. So it's aerated.
Mm-hmm.
Has those bubbles in it, which is awesome. Big fan.
What do you think of the cigar at this point and the pairing with that very fruity drink that you got?
It's I thought it would be more fruit forward than it. Oh boy, thunderstorms are coming.
That's 24 hours a day here, man.
It's almost like Florida is not meant for people to live in. Like all of the signs, the floods, the gators, it's not welcoming to any human being, I don't think. And yet there you are.
Here I am.
A glutton for punishment. You dirty girl. Yeah, so the watermelon, it's there, but it's not and I'm very happy that it's not a like candy sweet watermelon flavor like a Jolly Rancher. It
Yeah.
just tastes like you squeeze the watermelon into a glass of seltzer or something. It's very light. The jalapeno on it. That jalapeno, holy shit! If you don't like spice, this is not gonna be your thing.
Oh, it's got some like actual heat to it.
Yeah, it's got some proper heat. And then so drinking the mezcal, as you know, alcohol plus capsaicin, that baby burns real good.
Mm-hmm.
Which is nice. I think it's going really well with the cigar.
Nice. And what are your thoughts on the cigar at this point?
It took me a little bit. I think it took me about 15 minutes to really get into it, but I've been really digging the cigar. Even size aside, I complained about the size in the beginning. I
I
actually
actually
think
really like this size, which is weird for me too.
it's unusual, but I would absolutely buy this and have a couple on hand at least to
Yeah.
smoke.
Yeah, I really like this cigar. It kind of, to me, it still retains that Corojo kind of sweetness that the original Fonseca has, but then it has that, that super complex, earthy, spicy from the San Andres wrapper.
Yeah, man. Especially on the retrohale.
Yeah. Yeah, the retro hail is still pretty spicy. Rob Goodhart says he's made that 100% chocolate mistake too. Man, I still remember when I was a kid, like we had a cabinet where we kept all that kind of stuff, and I would see that can that says Hershey's on it, and I'd be like, man, I want some of that chocolate.
Powdered
And then
Hershey's.
I ate a spoonful one time, and it was like, nope, nope, just all it tastes like is bitter. Uh, yeah, just not good. Don't recommend it.
It's like the truffles that are rolled in powder.
Yeah, but it's just the powder. None of that
Yeah.
sweet, delicious
Oh yeah.
truffleness on the inside. I think it's actually exactly what they use for those. Yeah, I definitely would recommend this cigar to anybody.
Yeah. Same.
And I still love the original Fonseca. I'm not sure I like this more, but I think I like it as much as I like the original Fonseca from My Father. It's just nice that it's kind of a different vibe. That's the early afternoon. This is the evening version.
This is 100%, 100% evening cigar. I've always really liked My Father in general.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of my
So
dad too.
you couldn't resist. I know. I would have done the same.
I could. I could. Um, all right. Well, I guess that wraps up our kind of review of the My Father Fonseca MX, Edition MX, or Edition MX if you're reading the label. Do you have a pairing of the night tonight?
Yeah, man. Where was it? I just had it. You're gonna be surprised, but the Montbien, even being an going straight from the still to the bottle, being a young mezcal, if you will, I really love the green apple aroma to it. I love the minerality, bit of salt at the end. It's got enough of that bite to carry through the cigar toward the end. The other mezcal I had was 40%. It's a little bit less. Sometimes 5% really does make a difference when you look at a
Yeah.
spirit.
Well, and even like you can have two that are exactly the same ABV, and one's very hot and one's super drinkable.
Good
It's
point.
just in
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
processing more than anything. For me,
So,
I'm tempted to go with the Cascade. Art and Cascade, rest in peace. For now, at least, Cascade. Um, Art's not coming back, but Cascade might.
I hope they
Um,
do. I really hope they bounce
I
back.
hope so too because I love their beer. I can even buy their beer here. Like Total Wine down the street has a couple of cans of Cascade at all times, which I think is wild. It's $25 for 4 Red Bull size cans, which is a little much.
It's cheapish.
But it's Cascade. They don't make cheap beer. Period.
Yeah.
For me, it's Lagavulin. Lagavulin just works so well with this cigar. Like that richness against the richness of the cigar really goes together well. And if the smoke isn't too overpowering for you, it's definitely a pairing I would recommend. All right. I guess that is the end. Time for our one for the road. I'll go first this time because I've been making you go first lately, Dennis. Um, Mine is kind of a no-brainer, I think. If you haven't been already watching this, what are you even doing? But The Bear season 3 came out. Um, The Bear, if you haven't watched it, it's an incredible show. It's about a guy who is in the fine dining business and comes home because his brother passed away and takes over his shitty neighborhood restaurant that everybody loves, and all of the dysfunction in there that he has to deal with, and eventually makes some changes to it, and is on a cool path. Season 3, we finished it last night. I didn't think it was as good as season 1 and 2. Um, I thought it was awesome that you get so much backstory in the season that it's fantastic. And you really you get to know some of the characters that we didn't know as well before. But the larger story of what has been built up in season 1 and 2 goes almost nowhere during the season, which definitely sucks. But more seasons are coming, so hopefully they give us a little bit more meat on that bone next season. Dennis, what about you? What's your one for the road?
I think maybe a little bit apropos for the times that we're in now. There's a book that I recently revisited, called Damon by Daniel Suarez. You remember
Great
this
book.
Released in 2006. Now, you know the book. Those of you that don't know, it's a science fiction thriller novel. It's basically this computer programmer dies, and his death kind of unleashes
A
a
virus
computer.
on the world.
It's kind of like a virus in the world, but it's a thing that has uh, a series of events happen after his demise that related to this program that's activated that affects like the financial markets, people, different computer systems around the world. And so a bunch of law enforcement and other people and hackers get together and try to figure out what the hell this thing is doing and how to stop it. And it gets violent really quick. But it really does talk a lot about what we're seeing now is artificial intelligence, decentralized systems, this sort of the surveillance, the world of surveillance and the cyber systems that we are in now is really cool. And this is kind of near and dear to my heart because I have been neck deep in the
You
cyber
live
world.
it. Yeah.
I live in it professionally and personally and cannot escape it. I can never escape the Matrix, I think. But yeah, man,
It
great
knows
book.
too much about you.
It does. It really does, man. The simulation really is there for us sometimes. But yeah, is a fantastic book. There's a sequel to it called Freedom. Came out
Mm-hmm.
about 4 years later, which I actually am about halfway through now. But holy balls, it's so relevant, and it came out in 2006. Where looking at where we back then, how we felt about computers and the age of technology and where we were going in the future, we are somewhere very different than we
Yeah,
initially thought we would be. Certainly
definitely.
2006, but even 1996. Wild.
Yeah, good book. Good recommendation. All right, guys. Thank you everybody for hanging out. You know, I'm actually gonna wait to close out the show for a second, just because I want to tell a little story that has nothing to do with anything. But it's just weird, and I've been wanting to mention on the podcast about how weird it is.
Oh,
Well, I mean, it's not big news or anything, but it's just something that happened to me that's weird, and it's relevant to the podcast.
the Matrix.
Uh, so I listen to podcasts when I fall asleep, right? Um, a lot of times, as you know, I listen to Last Podcast on the Left. I listen to movie
Big fans.
podcasts. I listen
Yeah.
to cigar podcasts. I just like having that talking helps me get in the zone to fall asleep. Um, every once in a while, I will wake up and this show will be playing in my ears in the middle of the night. And it is so fucking weird to wake up and have my own voice saying things I kind of remember saying back to me in my head. Like, it's just such a weird feeling and so strange. Um, but I just thought I had to mention it.
It is an interesting feeling, no doubt. I agree there.
It like I felt like, I got to be subscribed to my own podcast, right? But then now it comes up in the middle of the night while I'm listening to something else. Like I'll forget to hit the snooze button so that it'll turn off after I fall asleep. And I'll wake up at 4:30 and hear me going, "Yeah, this Lagavulin is pretty good. It tastes like potatoes, and it's just super weird." And it's happened to me a couple times now, and every time it feels like I'm in like a fever dream kind of thing, you know? Because I'm reciting my own memories back to me, basically.
That's happened to me a couple of times where I've popped out of bed and my brain immediately goes to like, oh shit, I forgot my second pairing. What was my second pairing? And I'm like, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. There's no pairing anything. But for a solid maybe 10 seconds, I have this oh shit moment of did I get something? Did I bring it up? Is it here? Do I know what I'm talking about?
I totally get that.
Where are
I
my
totally
notes?
get that.
Is the funniest thing, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll happen to me sometimes too, where I'll wake up in the morning and be like, I forgot you my notes. Oh wait. We're not on the show right now. And that's the end of it. Anyway.
We're always on the show.
That's true.
That's the trick.
That is the trick. Thanks everybody for watching, for hanging out with us, for listening to the podcast. If you listen to the podcast, everybody have a good one. We'll talk to you next week, and we'll be smoking a cigar and pairing some stuff with it. So we appreciate you guys. Dennis, do the catchphrase thing, and then we will be out of here.
Squatchy is so good. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. And remember, we want you to drink better, but we want you to drink less.